Part two, only 7 weeks late. We have been busy, but it is time to get back on a regular recording schedule. And just to give you a quick reminder on part two, where we left off, we were very nervous about getting into Whole Foods on time and getting ready. And we were planning our trip to the Super Bowl, which ended up being a really critical trip for our next Super Bowl shenanigans. More to come there in the future episodes. Thanks for being a part of the journey, guys, and enjoy. Hey everyone, it is Friday afternoon and I am wiped out. It has been a long week, not a lot of sleep, but a lot of progress, making moves, which is good, just chipping away day by day. We're 16 weeks into these recordings and almost 8 months into working on this thing. So let's wrap up. What has happened since our last one? So first, we went to New Orleans. It was epic. It was awesome. It was fun. Really productive trip. Abe was our guide for Joe, Harvey, and myself. We got to spend time with a bunch of the kind of former players. Kyle Long, Chris Long. Got to play cornhole with Dion Dawkins, who's one of the highest paid guards in the leagues. He smoked me. Turns out he owns a cornhole league, though, so I don't feel too bad. Spent some time with Tom Brady's team. We got beer in the post-Super Bowl parade bus, which was fun. So we got a bunch of the players drinking the beer, which is awesome. Jay Glazer got our beer into Gronk's hands, and he loved it, apparently. Really loved the mission, so that's cool. I think in general, these kinds of trips are kind of long-term relationship building activities. And so you get to know people, get to meet people, and they get to see that you're legit over time. So it was great to establish a lot of those relationships. And the big thing that we're planning for is next year, it is in San Francisco. So it's in our hood. It's in our hometown, which should, lead to some potentially really cool activations, really cool opportunities. So that was a Super Bowl, super productive, tons of meetings, tons of beer handed out. Second, I think I had, just to give you guys an update on where we're at. So I really like this idea of building in public. I think most people don't give out the details on, how their businesses are doing and what's working and what's not working. And so it just doesn't help other people that much. And so want to do that. So couple things. First, where are we, right? So, you've gotten the updates, but we're really focused on branding and production and getting to our first sale, which is exciting. To date, we've raised about $350,000 in financing and what's called a safe note with a max valuation of $5 million. We have spent about $175K on that. It's about half of it. In terms of that $175K, about $100K of it has been on brewing and production costs as well as equipment. So doing all these different test batches and varieties and such and labor and those kinds of things just to get to where we want to get to in terms of flavors and that product investment. Spent way more on attorneys than I expected to spend. So $35K on attorneys, primarily around licensing, which turns out to be just a giant pain in the ass. But we're getting close. I visited ABC today, making friends. We're making moves. We also spent about $30K on travel, meals. We've shipped out a lot of product to people so they could taste it, try it, etc. And so, so that's kind of the bulk of, the spend and then small miscellaneous stuff here and there. And then in terms of what we plan on spending moving forward, we've got probably another $20K on branding, working on the labels, working on the six packs, working on the website, the tap handle, those kinds of things. We probably have another 20 or 30K on equipment that we need to buy to make sure we can do bottling, because initially we were just doing cans. We want to do bottles. And then from there, it's really about producing the beer and getting it into people's hands and trying to sell it, which we had our first couple restaurants try out the beer and they want to carry it, which is cool. So that's fun. They tried it at a friend of mine's restaurant and now they are carrying it or want to carry it, which is pretty cool. So that's that. The other epiphany I had recently was, obviously I'm coming from a very different industry. So I'm coming from the software industry and I'm trying to kind of wrap my mind around and my hands around this thing. And obviously you want to approach this from a first principles perspective, meaning you don't want to make too many analogies, right? Kind of assess it as it is. But the epiphany I had was beer is actually mostly a B2B industry or B2B problem, business to business problem, rather than a business to consumer problem. And the reason for that is two things, right? So one, from a consumer perspective, people don't really go out of their way to buy beer. It's very rare that they'll buy it online or, if you go to a restaurant, you pick from one of the 4 beers on the menu. If you're at a grocery store, what are the 15 or 20 beers I have options for? I'm going to pick one of those. And so you can drive demand once those people are actually in the store. But actually the hardest part is just getting in the store because a lot of beer brands trying to do that. And what's interesting about that for me is like, that's very much like these are businesses. You're a business selling to another business. And I very much understand that problem. And I understand how to do that because that's really what I've been doing my whole career. And then I think we'll figure out kind of how to drive the actual end user demand as well. But I think it dawned on me, and I don't know why it took me so long to figure it out. And so the thing that I've learned in my career about, doing B2B is, and probably the most important thing is you have to figure out how to get people to come to you. So one of the things that we realized early on was when we went to customer, let's say we cold emailed them, cold called them, went to them, found them, those customers, they were not as happy. They were less likely to continue to work with us, right? To renew. They were less profitable, right? They required more support. And that's because the way that they got in, they felt like they came in defensively, right? Like, okay, I'm going to work with you. It feels like right, but I don't know. Like, are you just a sales guy kind of tricking me? Versus if they came to you, whether it was from a referral from somebody else, or they were reading one of our research reports, or they watched our podcast, when they go to you, they kind of give you the benefit of the doubt, right? Because they chose to reach out to you. And so that dynamic is incredibly important. And so the question for me is, well, how can we get the retailers, how can we get the, on-prem distribution, the, grocery stores, how can we get those people to come to us as much as we can help it? And so I'm really thinking about what that approach is. The two things that I'm really thinking about, one is, content worked really well for me at Tribe, and I think worked even better once I started doing it myself, right? So creating content myself. And so I think that's going to be a big lever. And then obviously with LinkedIn, I've hit that threshold of like you add an extra digit, right? I'm past 10,000 fans. And so that adds credibility when I start creating content, even if it's a new category. And I think in general, if you look at kind of where the people that are going to be important to us spend their time, LinkedIn is a place. So I talked to Noah Sanborn and Mark Gallo, who are both like, alcohol industry kind of creators. And they said that's where all the grocery chains and corporates are, is LinkedIn, right? And so I know how to do that game. And I think one of the ways we'll do it is this podcast, but the other ways we'll do it is like building in public. So giving people details about our journey and how we're building and what's working and what's not working. And then also hopefully adding other insights as we, see opportunities there. The other thing I'm thinking about is we had a lot of success at Tribe with owned events. So I think most people tend to lean on like, hey, there's this really big conference, this really big event, like let's go have a booth there, right? But everybody's walked through a big conference or event and there's just like a booth and it's one of a bunch of different booths and you're not really there to see that booth anyways, even if there's only a few booths. And it just doesn't feel very cool. Like it feels desperate, right? It feels like you're trying to sell them something because you paid money to be there. And so the thing that we had a lot of success with was like throwing our own events, right? Let's throw our own events. And again, you can think of it like, going to a party, right? When you're at your own party, like it's a lot of fun. You're the center of attention, right? Like it really works well. When you're at somebody else's party, especially if you don't know very many people, it doesn't feel right. And like, imagine you went to a party and people knew you paid to go to that party. And it's really not very cool, very interesting. And so I think doing like a really aggressive owned event strategy that like builds community, particularly hyper locally, like in the Bay Area to start, is going to be somewhere that we really kind of lean into, and doing it really, I think, starting with the industry folks at first, to not really like doing a little bit of it at a consumer level, but more at an industry level, is going to be something that I try to lean into. And I know we spent time with Rushi, who is the founder and CEO of 8 Brewing, and then Aaron, who is the founder and CEO of Giant, Giant, Hard Tea, which have both raised, one raised 16 million, the other 26 million. They've done very well in the bev game. And they both pushed that. They both basically said like, limit your distribution, really be hyper focused in terms of particular localities, and then kind of build it out, right? And then the last thing, and I'm going long today, big challenges we have coming up. So we've got a couple different manufacturers we're looking at. One has the opportunity to scale up with us, which is great. The problem is that, there are struggles in that business in terms of just, is it going to make it? Is it not going to make it? It's unclear. And then the other one is smaller, and we've loved working there and the product is great, but, can really cap out at just a few $100,000 in sales, which for us is a lot right now, but when we talked to Aaron at Giant, you got $1 million just by opening up Trader Joe's, right? It can happen very, very quickly. So we're a little nervous about running into issues there. So we've really been weighing that and going back and forth on that. I think we're probably going to go with the route we're more confident in, which is a smaller one, and kind of build it up from there. And if we start to succeed, we can go to other contract manufacturers. But that's something we spent a lot of time going back and forth on this week. And I know when we talked to Rushi, like they picked 2 contract manufacturers that were wrong when they started 8, and it caused a lot of problems. So the fact that we have one that we like, that's putting out really good product and is easy to work with is a huge advantage. So anyways, we're starting to cross the what they refer to as the honeymoon phase. The honeymoon phase is the first 6 months or so. And then the next 6 months, you're like, oh God, we have to actually sell something. And then, after that, it's like the real trough of despair, which is like, God, we're never going to make it. It doesn't feel like it. But, we'll get through it. Have a great week, guys. Hope this is fun. And see ya in a week or 2. Oh boy, I'm in trouble. It's been a month since I last recorded, but it's not due to lack of things happening. It's due to too many things happening. So we're now 20 weeks into recording, and we are almost 9 months into the project. And somehow it feels like we still have infinite things to do. But I think that's just how it feels running a company. So let's go through big things that happened. What's happened in the last 4 weeks? So 1, we decided to focus our manufacturing at 5 Sons. It's a smaller facility, but we got a little bit more control, a little bit more stability. We also had to purchase this $100,000 bottling machine, which was a little terrifying. We only spent $21K, which was great. It was half the price that it was listed at. And we did our first run of bottles. So bottles are a pain in the ass, and we made it happen, and it tastes great out of the bottles. So that's really good. And we're also partnering up with them to buy a little bit more tank capacity to be able to handle it if sales go well, which we hoped. Second, we raised another $150,000 in investment. We're at a total of $500,000. Now that was supposed to be our max. That has us selling roughly 10% of the business to outside investors. But with that said, we've had a few other people that have been interested that are really valuable. And so we're considering adding additional capacity for them. Maybe a couple NFL players. It could be good. And so we'll see. And then after that, we'll open a new note for other people. This will be enough cash, hopefully, to get us to like late 2026 with $0 in revenue, which if we're at $0 in revenue in mid 2026, that's going to be really painful. Third, Harvey is moving to California. Harvey is our brewer. I've talked about him before, but he's going to be moving in the next couple months. I think we're ready to commit to him being here full time and getting him full time. And so we're excited about that. And Harvey is a rock star. So that's great. Other things, we flew to Boston. So we met with a few groups. So 1, we met with Tom Brady's media agency, to talk about working with them and get a general feel for, the space. They recommended that we chat with Gronk and Edelman's team, which could be interesting. It's Gronk and Edelman. That's pretty cool. Also met with a bunch of the Boston beer leadership. So CFO Matt Murphy and their head of innovation, who's launched all of their coolest brands, Angry Orchard Cider, Twisted Tea, Truly, which is really cool. So that was really fun. Got those connections through a friend. And then also met with John, the BevNet co-founder. So BevNet's like the big industry publication in this space. So we had a lot of success working with the CEW and Women's Wear Daily and Business of Fashion, these industry forward publications that aren't generally read by the public. BevNet's kind of the thing. And he founded this 30 years ago. And assuming he's not lying to me, he said he was pumped on the beer. And the one that we plan to be our flagship. So that's cool. Next up, we were in LA last week, both because of a Disneyland family vacation, but also because we're hosting some meetings. So one of our new investors, Alex and Adrian, set up a cool tasting party on St. Patrick's Day at the LA Athletic Club. Had probably 100 or 125 people taste. Me and Harvey did it, and people were really digging it. And the funny part was, we really liked our light beer, and the other beer, we're like, that's pretty good. And 60% chose the fuller beer, which we're like, maybe this should be our number 2 SKU. We also co-hosted an event with Jen Purcell, the CEO of Aveline, the clean wine brand that is Cameron Diaz's wine, which if you were to think of all the brands in existence, it's got to be near the top of the list, the clean wine brand by Cameron Diaz. So that was awesome. And it was really nice. I remember Kat Hontus at 21 Seed said they leaned so aggressively on partnerships, brand partnerships. And it's I don't sell wine, I don't sell whiskey, I don't sell clothes. Let's lean in with other people. And so it was really cool to do that together. And people were loving the beer there. That was more our friends, founders. We're starting to build out our community on the alcohol side. We had Rushi, the founder of 8 there. We had Aaron, the founder of Giant with the J, the hard tea brand. We had just a ton of really smart, cool people. And then kind of out of left field, through one of our investors, connected us with someone that hosts a big concert down in San Diego. It's like 6,000 people. They all get dressed up in disco attire and have a blast in the sun. And he offered to have our beer in the rooms of all the artists, which is like great. It's also like, how am I going to get it down there? And well, we made it happen. At one point, I had 3 different Uber couriers running at the same time. And we leaned on investors, we leaned on friends, but we got it down there. So hopefully that is happening tomorrow. So that's great. And then I've had like a half dozen meetings with bars and restaurants that Gabe set up. Really cool to learn from them, get to know them. And I am like really bullish on the on-premise strategy, meaning like selling in restaurants and bars. It's just an area that's largely ignored by the big guys and even some of the smaller guys. I think just a little bit of effort goes a long way there. And it's a type of sale I know, which is great. So that's really good. And so many good learnings there. And then finally, I think the thing that's been really wild for me is just the level of meetings you can get now. Like it's nuts just because one, it's a good idea, but mostly just the credibility. And I think it's a big unlock being a second time founder versus a first time founder. It's like I went through my calendar and I've had calls with the CEO of Sierra Nevada, the CFO at Olipop, which just got valued at 1.8 billion. We got with a SVP at the Four Seasons, who's an old friend, who's like, hey, I can introduce you to people at the Four Seasons. And then Andy Galpin, who's a big influencer and doctor. We've got beer getting sent to a bachelor party with like half dozen Pro Bowl NFL players. We met the CEO of Sufferfest, which is the only brand ever acquired by Sierra Nevada. We talked to the CEO of CrossFit. We talked to the vice president of business development and transformation at Budweiser. We've talked to 5 different investment groups. We talked to super senior exec at Molson Coors, who's, knows this stuff, was there for like 20 plus years. The operating partner at Suja and Sama Teas. We talked to the agent for Adam Driver and Adrian Brody, who just won an Oscar. We talked to the investment arm of the AB InBev family. We talked to the Bureau team founders, which is Matt Holland's brand. We had a beer with Stonyfield, founder of Stonyfield Yogurt, which got to like 800 million in revenue. And he like loves the beer, which is pretty cool. So it's just nuts. Like it's definitely a big advantage going in the second time. And although none of those people are going to directly be our customers, I do think there's just a lot of value in building out community within your industry. I think it pays dividends in a lot of ways that people don't expect, whether that's with distributors or that's with retailers or that's with end customers. I just think, or just learning, right? You learn so much from them. So that's what we did. That's everything I could think of. And it's a lot. So these are the things to do. So the first one is we really need to finalize the branding. The branding we have now is good, but I think it has an opportunity to be great. This branding process, coming from somebody that's in the tech industry, takes way longer than I expected it to. Joe kept telling me this, but I finally am figuring out why it takes so long. It's just every cycle takes a few weeks. And the reason you have to really get it right is like when you create one of these products, like a physical product, you can't like just iterate it every week. You're ordering these things months and months in advance in order to get them to be, and you're ordering them at really big scale. So you don't want to make changes all the time. So anyways, so this is the branding I feel really good about. I'm going to read it to you guys. You have it. So what's our mission? Our mission is to help a few more people be parents and help a few more people live a little bit longer. Right? That's a big mission because when we're drinking this stuff, if you're drinking poison, it's not going to help you live very long. And that's part of the inspiration for me starting the company was like, I want to enjoy beer and I want to live as long as I can, as healthy as I can. And so, and that's partly connected to why we chose the name Fathers, right? It's got this generational appeal, that, when you're a dad, you literally are extending human life and you're taking care of human life. And that's ultimately some of the people we're trying to help. And so that's that. The question is, how do we do that? So how do we help a few more people be parents, et cetera? So the way that we do that is we are reinventing the American lager. American lagers are one of the most widely consumed beverages in the United States, and it has been a race to the bottom with shittier and shittier ingredients and less flavor. We're here to make American lagers what they should be, which is the best in the world. Like, why is American lager or American beer not considered the best in the world? That should be what we strive to. And so the question is, well, then how do you make it the best beer on earth? What is required to turn American lagers into the best beer in the world? So these are the 3 things. The first one is you have to be uncompromising in your ingredients. American lagers are so bad that they had to create a new category for them called American adjunct lagers, right? The word adjunct is there because American beers use corn syrup and rice and all this shit that you didn't traditionally see in beer. Gross, right? And so the second phrase from that is out with the corn syrup and chemicals and in with the best organic malt and hops the United States has to offer. So that's the first one, being uncompromising in our ingredients. The second part is it needs to be clean. And it needs to be clean for two reasons. One, beer is loaded with bad stuff that is literally killing us. Lead, arsenic, Roundup, plastic, bad. The second reason, I think equally important, is like an organic tomato just actually tastes better than one that's covered in Roundup and heavy metals and other stuff. Like, this is an agricultural product. We are using grains and hops and boiling them and fermenting them and turning them into a beverage. And so the grains and the hops that you put in there affects the flavor, that the end product. And so the phrase that I'm really latching onto, and I think this will be the phrase of the company, is clean beer tastes better, right? Like an organic tomato tastes better, clean beer will taste better. And so that's the second one, is it needs to be clean. The third thing is you got to have one of the best lager makers in the world. So if you were to look back historically at the great breweries of the past, the name of the brewery was the name of the brewer, right? Like, Augustus Busch, right? Or, if you look at Coors, right? Like these brands were built off of the reputation of an individual, right? And so, I want to get back to that. And I think one of the ways that we lean into that is our brewer, Harvey, has studied under some of the best lager makers on earth. He's one of the best lager makers on earth and has set up breweries around the world over the last 25 years doing this. And so having him as part of the founding team and really part of the soul of the business is quite powerful. And for those that aren't in the beer industry, what people don't realize is a lot of these are just guns for hire. You bring somebody in, you hire them for a little while, they create your recipes, and then they leave. And that's not what we want to be, right? So that's the third thing. You got to have one of the best craftsmen in the world actually making the product. And so that's the brand. That's the plan. And so now we got to go do it. Other things we have to do, we got to purchase and install some new equipment. And then once we get the branding finalized, we really need to set up meetings with Whole Foods and distributors. This is like a 6 to 12 month lead time, which is absolutely bananas. But, you got to start setting up those meetings now, right? And then the final thing is we're going to have to start selling. So 3 weeks from now, we're going to have what we believe to be our flagship beer ready, and we're going to have our bottles ready, and we won't have the packaging quite ready, but it'll be close enough to start selling. It's like, now we get to start selling, which for me, honestly, I couldn't be more excited. Like, I know what I want to do. I've wanted to sell this for a while. I know what the messaging is. I've had 1,000 of these conversations or 5,000 of these conversations. Like, let's go fucking do it. So anyways, that's it. Thanks for listening in, guys. Drink some of our beer. Go and buy it. Well, guys, it's 4:59 a.m. I've been up since 2. And typically I prepare a lot of notes. I think about what I'm going to say. And this time I didn't. And it's because this is unique. I locked in another few places last night to start carrying beer. And I've never sold anything like this in my whole life. Tribe, which was a very successful company, compared to this, felt like I was running uphill while this is sprinting downhill. This is what you hope for when you start a company as an entrepreneur. Like, you hope that it's going to be this easy. And it hasn't been easy every day over the last 7 or 8 months. But I think all of that work and time spent getting it right is what is making it so easy now. And this is it. This is it. This is going to be a big deal. It's weird. It's weird to realize it. Anyways, I'll give more operational updates later. Just had to record it because shit is happening. And yeah, it's going to be crazy. Cross your fingers. Lots to do. Later, guys. It's time to fast forward, folks. I was behind. It is 4:55 p.m., November 20th, 2025, and we are cranking. So we have just started selling in kind of June, July, publicly launched in September. We're up to 140 locations that are now carrying fathers. Grown like a weed, up from 55 3 months ago. We raised $1 million from Lane Johnson, the founders at K, Teen, Fair Harbor, Nads, Lore, etc. We have started rolling out Whole Foods in September in Contra Costa and Alameda counties. It's selling really well, so we're expanding into Marin, Napa, Sonoma, etc. Got 3 people that are doing sales for us locally. Cheyenne's on the marketing side, another 5 that help us out with events. And we're hosting 4 to 10 events a week just in those 2 counties. And I think this is one of the most important things I've learned about beer. Beer is like neighborhood by neighborhood warfare. The reasons for this are twofold, right? So one, beer is just really, really heavy. And so that makes moving it around expensive. So you don't want to move it around a lot. So if I have 40 locations in the East Bay and I had one in LA, that's a huge increase in cost. The second reason it's neighborhood by neighborhood warfare is the vast majority of people will buy 90% of their beer within 5 miles of where they live. That is where they buy their beer all the time. It's where they shop. It's where they eat. It's where they drink. And so what this means is you can kind of create these little mini monopolies, city by city by city. You get one bar in that spot, you get the other 7 restaurants, and all of a sudden you become the kind of local favorite. So that's something that is important too. And we get a lot of people like, why aren't you in LA? Why aren't you in Idaho? Why aren't you here? Why aren't you there? It's like, we're getting there, but like this is the only efficient way to grow, it turns out. I've also started building in public. So I started posting on LinkedIn maybe 6 or 7 weeks ago, and X to a lesser degree, going really well. So I have all kinds of conversations, investors, retailers, distributors that have found us via those, as well as we got a lot of press when we did the launch, which was good. Need to get back to that. So strongly recommend the building in public thing. Lastly, we are getting a second crack at the Super Bowl. Turns out they do this thing every year. We are doing, and this one's in San Francisco, which is right over there. And so we are doing a really cool super fan games with Justin Pugh, who's a retired NFL badass. He gets about 25 million views a month, just started last year creating a super fan games. Whoever wins that games, we're sending him to the Super Bowl. And then secondarily, we have about 20 or so brands that we're going to do a VIP party with afterwards. And so we've got Angel Margarita, which is Haley Steinfeld's brand, Beekman 1802, Best Day Brewing, which is the second highest volume non-alc beer in the country, K18, Kosas, Lalo, Melee, the vodka brand by Jason Momoa, Movember, Mudwater, Nad's Organic Underwear, Olaplex, Pixie, Beauty, Rare Beauty, Selena Gomez's line, Red Bull, Southside, Spike Ball, Therabody, Youth to the People, Bear Harbor, one of our investors. We got a ton. So putting that on, it will be, I think, sick. And we want to make it like a recurring thing over time that we do, every single year. I think finally, these are the things that are keeping me up at night. So first, we are making a big increase in production in about April. So we have about a 10x increase in our current volume, which is a little terrifying because we got to sell 10 times as much beer. Now, right now, the problem we have is we are running out of beer. So you have this weird like in between stage where it's like you're running out of your current thing, but you don't need 10 times as much of it. But that's the only way that you can kind of do this thing. And so we're trying to find ways to kind of bridge that gap and ramp up to it. But there's going to be some like awkward time in between. Good part is it's going to drop our cost by about 50%, which is super legit. Second, we are not good at social yet. And it's so hard to dedicate time to it as a brand. And we are also behind in the influencer game. I was talking to a good friend of mine, Ellie, today, who's the head of influencers at Rode. And they're doing 1,000 gifts a month. I think we're doing like 10. Like we just got to step it up big, big, big time there. And honestly, I spent my whole career preaching that, it's all about what other people say about you, not about what you say about yourself. And I'm spending all my time thinking about content we create about ourselves. And it's like, I'm not spending any time getting other people to talk about us. And so I'm going to change that. I'm going to change that really rapidly. The next one is we're ramping up distribution. So when you scale up beer brands or really any beverage brand, you don't want to be one truck delivering one product to one location. You want to be one truck delivering 15 products to one location. It just makes everything much more efficient. And so you have these distributors that exist all around the country that serve this purpose, right? And so we are planning to sign on with some of those distributors, but I get very nervous about the kind of customer service and maintaining of that relationship. It just feels challenging. And then we are crushing grocery, but it's time to start pushing even harder there. I frankly think we're a brand that will do better in grocery than it will in the kind of restaurant scene. We're doing really well in the restaurant scene, but like we got to start pushing there. So I'm looking at you, Safeway, Sprouts, Trader Joe's, Rayleigh's, Costco, Target. I am coming. They're going to find me. And with that, I'm out. I'll catch you on the other side. Ash and I are going to start doing these episodes regularly. I will start recording more regularly. I've just been so heads down for so long. Anyways, thank you guys. I appreciate all the support. Everybody's been so generous in buying our beer and spreading the message. So thank you to our investors, our customers, our partners, all of them. It's been epic. Whole Foods is so great to work with. And with that, I will talk to you guys soon.